There's a peculiar shift that happens in every trader's journey when you open your platform. The same platform that used to overwhelm you, and suddenly it doesn't feel as threatening anymore. The confusion begins to settle. The uncertainty starts to make sense. You can't pinpoint exactly when it occurred, but something within you shifted. That's the transformation most traders never experience. It's not announced by a massive win or a flawless entry. It's announced by stillness. The stillness that shows you're no longer approaching the market like the 95%. You're starting to think, move, and react like the 5% who survive. I've witnessed it over and over. Traders who rush, freeze, and give up, and then one moment, something shifts. Their approach stops being reactive and starts becoming deliberate. Their attention moves from hunting returns to controlling themselves. That's when you realize you're finally making the transition. You're evolving into a consistent trader. And that's what we're going to explore today. 5 quiet indicators that show you're finally on that journey. They won't appear in your profit statements first. They'll appear in your thinking, your routines, and the way you handle the market. The first indicator is this. You no longer enter trades for adrenaline. You enter for conviction. When I began, I assumed trading was about movement. I thought the more I executed, the quicker I'd succeed. Every price change felt like a challenge. Every bar a choice. But I was mistaken because the market doesn't reward business, it rewards restraint. The moment you stop feeling that relentless need to act, to open, to close, to avoid being left behind, that's when you start to grasp what trading actually is. It's not a contest of endless activity, it's a contest of waiting. You begin reviewing your charts with less frequency. You no longer obsess over every movement. You discover yourself centered, not because the market is quiet, but because you are. That's the subtle transformation that distinguishes traders who react from traders who persist. I once heard it wasn't my analysis that created the real returns. It was always my waiting. And that wasn't about being passive. It was about mastery. Mastery over your reactions, your worry, your desire. You stop attempting to predict the market and start learning to observe it. That's the power of remaining still while everyone else is scrambling for position. The second indicator you're evolving into a consistent trader is that you begin to process drawdowns differently. Drawdowns no longer hurt the way they once did. They no longer shake your confidence. You stop internalizing them because you finally realize a drawdown isn't a setback. It's information. Every drawdown reveals something about you, your approach, or your consistency. And that insight is more valuable than any quick gain. In my beginning phase, a single losing position would destroy my mindset. I'd force the next trade, attempting to recover. But the market doesn't respond to your feelings. It only acknowledges your actions. So I stopped thinking, what went wrong? And started thinking, did I honor my rules? That's the perspective change that creates reliability. When your definition of success shifts to process instead of profit, you become resilient. Because no individual trade can defeat you when your worth isn't dependent on numbers. Every lasting trader I've ever known achieved that level. They stopped pursuing perfection and started pursuing presence. That's the secret. If you're here now and recognizing that your responses are steadier, your composure deeper, your attention clearer, that's not random. That's growth. You're starting to trade with purpose, not impulse. The third indicator is quiet, but it's significant. You begin to believe in your own analysis. Initially, traders switch from one method to another. They question every choice. They reconsider every opportunity. But gradually, after sufficient experience, observation, and struggle, you start to trust your own understanding again. Not emotional understanding. You've witnessed the market's deceptions enough times that you don't get fooled anymore. You begin executing your own plan even when it's uneventful. Even when it's tedious because you've learned the reality. Uneventful trading is consistent trading. That's how you recognize you're progressing. When the rush disappears and understanding replaces excitement. When your strongest trades feel peaceful, not frantic. When your mental balance matters more than a fast profit. That's when you're becoming a genuine trader. Because the reality is the market challenges everyone. It challenges your pride, your composure, your self-worth. And most people quit not because they lack knowledge, but because they lack discipline. So when you notice yourself becoming calmer, more controlled, less impulsive, acknowledge that. It's a transformation most traders never achieve. Before we continue to the next section, I want to ask you something. We've created a space for traders who want to improve, who think critically, and who refuse to quit. So, share with us in the comments what resonates with you most about these videos. What's the one element that supports you the most? And what's the greatest challenge you're experiencing in your trading path right now? Your responses guide the content we develop next. Because this isn't just my journey, it's yours too. And if this perspective resonates with you, if you recognize yourself in these ideas, take a second to like this video. Forward it to someone who needs to see it, and explore the other trading wisdom on this channel, like the art of patience in trading and the mindset of position management. Those will guide you even further into the thinking that's developing real traders. Because this path isn't about one insight or one indicator. It's a journey, and we're just beginning. You know you're transforming when you stop starting your day hunting setups and start starting your day safeguarding consistency. That's the fourth indicator. It's not as thrilling as capturing a huge momentum move, but it's the basis of everything that endures. You start to recognize that every trading session doesn't need to be profitable, but every trading session must be intentional. Some sessions you profit, some sessions you pause, some sessions you simply observe. And on those calm sessions, you discover something important. That standing still is an action in itself. The beginners can't stand quiet. They believe the charts owe them noise. But the veterans, the ones who've weathered every calm, understand that quiet is the noise of the edge forming. They don't beg for it. They don't run after it. They get ready for it. That's what control looks like when it ripens. It turns serene. You stop debating the tape. You stop trying to command what you cannot. You just act when the moment calls and stay silent when it doesn't. I recall the seasons when I believed control meant denial, blocking myself from entering, fighting my gut, smothering my urges. But true control isn't about denial. It's about harmony. It's when your thoughts, your method, and your composure start to flow together like a single, steady pulse. That's the kind of control that builds endurance. It's not a lesson you absorb by morning. It's a state you grow into. You begin to see you're not tired anymore. You're not mentally spent when the screen goes dark. You don't feel the urge to stare at your balance after every tick. You understand that your value isn't tied to your account line. That's when you sense you're starting to operate from stillness, not stress. And from that stillness comes sight. That sight leads to the fifth mark, one of the faintest, but fiercest signals there is. You begin reasoning in odds, not payouts. This is the view that divides the speculator from the veteran. The speculator sees each trade as a pass or fail moment. The veteran sees each trade as just one of hundreds, part of a wider sequence that reveals advantage, not anxiety. When I was new, I needed to be correct on every entry. I needed to foresee the next surge, to name the peak, to catch the trough. But with years, I saw that the aim isn't to be correct. It's to place sound bets again and again. The market doesn't pay the arrogance. It pays the steadiness. When you begin to think in terms of odds, you quit worrying about being correct and start concentrating on playing correctly. You execute your script. You accept your signals. You control your exposure. And you believe the statistics over the sentiment. You start to say things like, "That position didn't win, but it was a valid position." That phrase alone marks growth, because it means your system matters more than your self-image. It's strange. Folks often ask me what divides the veterans from the crowd. They want some cryptic method, some concealed tool, some private hall where clever cash waits. But the reality is, the gap isn't outside, it's inside. It's the power to separate from the result, to focus on the action, to stay steady even when the score shifts. When you think in odds, you quit over-responding. You quit closing your gains too early from panic. You quit averaging your losses from desire. You become an analyst of your own process. You quit betting with feeling and start working with reason. That's when trading turns silent. You see that steadiness isn't built on force. It's built on routine, doing the proper thing repeatedly without demanding immediate evidence that it's winning. And that's what most traders can't tolerate, the lag. They hunger for instant validation. But the veteran allows the gap between control and gain. That's where true returns develop. If you've arrived at that place where you can take a setback and stay settled, where you can let a signal pass without irritation, where you can follow your script even when it feels wrong, then know this. You're already existing in the mentality that most traders never find. You're not hunting profits anymore. You're turning into the sort of person who can merit them. Because the truth is the market compensates those who can pause. It compensates those who can bear ambiguity without losing poise. It compensates those who can follow their edge through monotony, through hesitation, through dread. That's expertise. And that expertise doesn't proclaim itself. It doesn't appear as explosions or luck. It appears in silence, in the calm you sense when your position is working and you're not itching to adjust it, in the endurance you keep when nothing's shifting and you're not inventing it, in the assurance you form when your script finally feels like instinct. That's when you know the market has ceased being your rival and started being your reflection. It shows your control, your endurance, your growth. It reveals who you've grown into and who you still must become. And once you see that, you'll never operate the same way again. You'll quit searching for the next trick and start polishing the route you've already picked. You'll quit measuring your path against others and start mastering your own tempo. You'll quit dreading the market and start honoring it. That's when trading stops being turmoil and becomes craft. And if these words are reaching you, if they're helping you view trading in a fresh way, take a moment to acknowledge them. Pass them to someone who requires them. What comes next will lead us into the deeper truths that show why these marks emerge and what they mean for your lasting journey. There arrives a phase in every trader's path when you start to understand something uneasy. You are no longer studying the market. The market is studying you. It observes your patterns, your doubts, your haste. It knows when you run. It knows when you waver. And when it sees that you've ceased reacting, when it feels that your feelings no longer expose you, that's when it finally begins to pay you. That's the unseen turn that marks a sustainable trader. The market hasn't shifted. You have. You've learned to command what most can't even name, yourself. And that leads us to one of the scarcest signs of all, the instant when you begin to cherish time more than transactions. At the start, time feels like your foe. Every minute you're not in a trade feels lost. Every second the chart runs without you feels like a penalty. But the weathered trader knows time is not your foe. It's your strongest friend. Sustainable traders think in cycles, not clicks. They quit trying to make cash every session and start trying to guard their capital every season. They grasp that victory in trading isn't made from one brilliant play. It's made from enduring 1,000 tiny errors without ruin. You start designing your trades like a builder designs his project slowly, carefully, with attention to the fine points. You see clearly what you're waiting for, and you're prepared to wait as long as required. That's not indifference. That's precision. The amateurs think you're lazy when you sit out, but the professionals know sitting out is the trade. That's how you preserve the energy for the moment that truly matters. When I reached that point, I noticed something fascinating. My life outside trading began to change too. I stopped rushing. I stopped forcing outcomes. I started trusting patience in everything, not just markets. Because trading at its core is a mirror of character. The discipline you build at the chart reflects in every decision you make off it. You see, becoming a profitable trader isn't about learning strategies. It's about building identity. You're not trying to find signals. You're trying to become the kind of person who can follow them. The charts are the same for everyone. What changes is who's reading them. That's why I've always said a trader's edge isn't in the market. It's in the mind. You can hand two people the same strategy, the same risk management rules, the same tools. One will grow wealthy, the other will burn out. The difference isn't logic, it's emotional endurance. The ability to stay calm while the world tests you. And if you've reached a point where you can sit through drawdowns without panic, where you can endure boredom without forcing trades, where you can accept uncertainty without frustration, then congratulations. You're beginning to live what most only talk about. You're thinking like a professional. You're becoming someone who doesn't need the market to validate them, because you already trust your process. There's another powerful sign, and this one's often overlooked. You start to simplify everything. In the early years, you collect indicators like trophies. You load your charts with signals, moving averages, oscillators, hoping more data means more control. But as you evolve, you begin to strip it all away. You start realizing that the market isn't complicated. Your thinking is you trade fewer setups. You hold longer. You wait for clearer confirmation. And that simplicity feels like freedom. That's the final evolution every trader goes through, from noise to clarity. You begin to understand that less is not only more, less is profitable. When your workspace becomes cleaner, your thoughts follow. Your trading plan becomes sharper. Your rules become non-negotiable. And you finally feel in control. Not because you control the market, but because you control yourself within it. That's the real victory. It's not about how much you make. It's about how little you now need to trade recklessly. You've detached from the obsession with more. More trades, more screens, more signals. Now you crave only better. Better setups, better risk, better mindset. That shift from quantity to quality is the mark of every seasoned professional I've ever met. But let me warn you, when you reach this level, complacency becomes the next trap, because comfort can be dangerous. The moment you feel invincible, the market will remind you that you're not. That's why humility must always walk beside mastery. I learned that the hard way. The same confidence that builds fortunes can also destroy them if left unchecked. You must keep questioning, keep journaling, keep learning even when you're winning, especially when you're winning. The greatest traders don't fear losses, they fear arrogance. Because arrogance blinds you faster than any drawdown ever will. So if you've been seeing progress lately, if your charts look cleaner, your decisions calmer, your results steadier, remember, stay humble, keep your curiosity alive. The market is generous, but only to those who remain students forever. This is why I tell traders, success isn't a destination, it's maintenance. It's a lifelong balancing act between confidence and caution. And when you finally find that rhythm, that delicate harmony between boldness and restraint, you begin to feel something few ever experience. Peace. Peace with your process. Peace with your pace. Peace with your journey. That's when you're no longer chasing the market. You're flowing with it. And that flow, that effortless focus is the signature of every profitable trader. Before we continue to the final part, I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, what stage are you in right now? Which of these signs have you begun to see in yourself? And what do you still struggle with? Your honesty helps this community grow, because every comment, every story reminds another trader they're not alone. And if this part resonated with you, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. The journey isn't over yet, because in the final part, we'll go deeper into what happens after you become consistent. The quiet challenges that follow success and how to stay profitable when the world finally starts believing you are. When consistency finally arrives, it doesn't feel the way you expect. It doesn't come with fireworks or wild excitement. It comes quietly, almost unnoticed. You wake up one day and realize you no longer think about making money. You think about protecting discipline. That's when you know you've crossed the invisible line, the line between trader and professional. But here's the part nobody talks about. After consistency comes a new kind of challenge: sustainability, because staying profitable is harder than becoming profitable. The same patience and humility that built your foundation must now protect it. At this stage, the greatest danger isn't loss, it's comfort. When you start to win regularly, when your confidence grows, that's when the old voice of greed tries to return, whispering, "You've mastered it. You can take more risk now. You can skip the plan just this once." That voice is subtle, but it's deadly. It's the same one that ruins empires and ends careers. Because the moment you stop respecting the market will remind you who's in charge. I've seen traders make millions and lose them in months, not because they forgot how to trade, but because they forgot why they traded the way they did. They abandoned the patience that built their success, chasing the thrill they thought they'd outgrown. And that's where your final test begins. When you can win and still stay humble, when you can grow and still stay grounded, when you can teach others without thinking you've learned everything, that's when you become unstoppable. Because true profitability isn't about the size of your account. It's about the size of your discipline. You begin to see your trading as a reflection of your mind. If your thoughts are chaotic, your results follow. If your thoughts are calm, your results align. And suddenly, every session becomes a form of meditation, not on price, but on patience. This is where trading becomes something bigger than money. It becomes a craft, a mirror, a way of living with awareness. You stop seeing charts as lines and numbers. You start seeing them as behavior, emotion, rhythm. You see panic in red candles, greed in green, fear in the hesitation between them. And in that recognition, you gain a strange power not to control the market, but to control yourself within it. That's what separates the elite from the average. The average trader wants to predict what will happen. The elite trader focuses on how they will respond when it does. That's mastery. You know you've reached it when you start valuing boredom. When the quiet, uneventful days no longer frustrate you. They fulfill you because you know boredom is where consistency is built. That's when trading stops feeling like a test and starts feeling like balance. You'll begin to notice that your entire life feels different. You'll stop rushing decisions, stop reacting emotionally, stop craving validation. You'll think slower. You'll feel lighter because the same patience that made you a profitable trader will make you a calmer person. That's the hidden gift no one talks about. Trading teaches you more about life than markets. It teaches you detachment, humility, patience, and respect for uncertainty. And when you learn those lessons, you start to live with more intention both inside and outside the charts. It took me years to understand this. I chased every method, every signal, every secret edge. But in the end, all the market ever asked from me was mastery of myself. When I finally stopped fighting the market and started listening to it, that's when everything changed. And now, if you're here listening, learning, reflecting, then you're already walking that same path. You've begun to transform in ways most traders never will, because most never make it past the noise. But you're starting to hear the rhythm behind it. So remember these 5 signs, not as milestones to chase, but as reflections to recognize. When you trade for clarity instead of excitement, when you stop letting losses define you, when you trust your own judgment and follow your plan, when you think in probabilities, not emotions, and when you find peace in patience instead of thrill, that's when you're becoming a profitable trader. Not someday, not soon, but now. Because profit isn't a number, it's a mindset. It's the maturity to handle both gain and loss with the same calm spirit. It's the awareness to know that your job is not to predict the market, but to participate with discipline. That's what Livermore learned the hard way. And that's what I hope every trader learns the easy way by listening, reflecting, and applying. So before we close, I want to ask you something. We've built a space here for traders who think deeper, who see trading as a journey, not a gamble. Tell us in the comments below, what do you love most about these videos? What speaks to you the most about this one? And what's the biggest challenge you're facing right now in your trading? Be honest. Your story could help someone who's still in the storm you just walked through. That's how this community grows, not through numbers, but through shared wisdom. And if this message hit home, if it made you pause, reflect, or see your trading differently, take a second to like this video. Share it with a trader who needs it. And check out my other stories on this channel. Each one connects to this lesson because they all lead to the same truth. The greatest trade you'll ever make isn't in the market. It's within yourself. The moment you master your mind, the market becomes your mirror. And when that happens, profit becomes inevitable. Not because you chase it, but because you've become the kind of trader who deserves it.